Most of the fighters that fought over the weekend and lost had everything that they needed. They were in shape. They had the total offensive prowess intact. But, you know, the bottom line is this is exactly why we're going to have this conversation. This has been a repeating pattern for all of the fighters who fight over the weekend. They come in ready, then they lose, and they can't put their finger on why. This is why we're going to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's a must-have conversation. Today, you know, it's Monday after fight weekend, a big fight weekend. We had the big ring card 6, and then we had Zuffa Boxing, and we saw, as Coach just said, a pattern across the board. So this is a much bigger conversation. A lot of people, I think it's going to connect some serious dots because a lot of people are beating themselves up that they didn't go hard enough in camp. They didn't have certain skills under the belt, and you know what? We're here to be the messenger. It had nothing to do with that at all.
Had absolutely nothing.
So let's dive in. How about that? So do we want to talk about how things went down when it came to power? There were a lot of fighters that were on cards that are known to be big power punchers, and it was just vacant. So I'll let you tee it up as you see fit, Coach.
So one of the things that most people, when you think about power, you see there's a chain that connects everything in the body, right? And if that chain has any weakness in that link, that thing cannot turn and get you up that hill. And so the broken link in the chain typically happens in the camp when it's time to do what we call the installation process. And that basically means get the skill, obtain the strength, but understand how it has to be delivered on that fight night. And if you don't have that process in place, that means one of the things have been missing out. So it's just like going to get a bowl of cereal and you don't get the milk. And then you're sitting down and you're like, oh my gosh, these are little things that are just missing out. And a lot of camps, they try and they want to work harder and they're thinking about power and they're thinking about executing skills, but they don't understand there's one more department in this place.
Interesting.
That has to be implemented. And that department, my friend, is the installation cesspool. This is where all of this stuff gets grounded into the neuromuscular network, so that it can conversate with the actual brain. It can connect to the nervous system. It can hit the muscles. And when that void is there, it can't connect. And it can't hear the guy talking when it's your coach talking. He can't really hear you because none of the things that are supposed to be connected in that chain are connecting. And I'll get into what is that process look like when you know how to make that chain connect and get rid of all those weak links.
Yeah, so let's do this maybe. Let's try to identify what actually breaks down first.
Yes.
That might be a good way to start the conversation. What actually breaks down first for the fighter?
When the fighter does not have the installation process, excuse me, when a fighter doesn't have the installation process that settles into that body, and I want to make it really clear to y'all because in boxing we need layman's term. If you are able to execute a skill in boxing, when you can execute that skill in boxing, that means you have the second level of mastery. Cognitive, you can see it. Second degree, you can do it. That means there's the last degree, which is the physical mastery. Second degree lets you do it as a technique, as a skill, but it doesn't mean you can do it when pressure is applied. And so when the pressure is applied, the brain has to say this is a familiar territory. If it's a familiar territory, then it can operate. It actually just it grows white wings. But if it doesn't have that connection, meaning I'm not familiar with this when pressure comes, then that's where the chain breaks. That's where the vision, the perception, all of those things start to get blurry. And
that breathing starts to change.
They can't read the opponents. They start doing things like reacting versus anticipating. And it's because you don't have that process installed.
I read something interesting just yesterday. I heard that Usyk kind of shared with the media or some media source that he actually watches and has his antennas up for his opponent's breathing, because he knows exactly what that opponent is getting ready to go into. He's just started those beginning stages of cognitive collapse.
Cognitive collapse. And cognitive collapse is when your brain can see it. Just say, for instance, if you're boxing against a person and you can land every punch. Like, let's just use somebody, a fighter, probably Shakur Stevenson. And he's popping the jab. When you have a slick fighter in front of you, one of the things to throw off the rhythm of a slick fighter is when a slick fighter is disturbed by a straight line. So the jab is a straight line, and they work oblong, abstract. And abstract is all over the place. So when they're being controlled by a straight line, it throws everything off in their database. And so therefore they find conflict. And when you find conflict in boxing, that triggers the sympathetic nervous system. And now everything goes
They can't
awry.
operate, they're out of their norm.
So they're out of their norm. They look very uncomfortable, and it doesn't have to be in the third or through the sixth round. It could be at the very beginning of the fight. If the jab starts, that's why most slick fighters, I remember Roy Jones Jr. said when he got in the ring with Sugar Ray Leonard sparring, he said, I didn't want to go hard with Sugar Ray Leonard. He was towards the end of his career. I was young and fresh. And he said, but I know when you box a slick fighter, you can stop their momentum with a jab because they have to be in a position where they're coming to you in order to strike. And if they're walking into the jab, they're discombobulated. So
Fascinating, because like you open the show with pattern, and if you were watching some boxing over the weekend, either on the ring card or the Zuffa boxing, you could clearly see that this pattern played out regardless of weight class, regardless of the fighter, regardless of style. So it would be fair to say this is not a personal thing, this is a systemic thing.
it has nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with individual camps, right? But in camps, there's a thing that must happen. The trainer must show the guy the skill and make sure that he can do the skill properly, make sure he doesn't get countered, and make sure that he knows how to let his hands go, good footwork. That's his job. The coach is in that corner, and he's making sure that the guy his spirit is in the right place to deliver that stuff. That's training camp. You got on headgear and you got on 16 ounces. When you don't install it in the installation process, it looks like something like this. This right here goes in the manner in which you do it. It goes into the nervous system, right? Treacherous situations have to have a second propeller. That's your second propeller to get to that stuff, to get access to it, to what we call bypass the nervous system so that it doesn't say, hey, shut that bus down. And the implementation of that skill at that level of intensity must be done. And if you don't understand that, that's where you find a situation like this young kid, Teofimo Lopez, was caught off guard. He could not access his skill set. Now you've been in the ring training, sparring hard, doing a lot of rounds, doing a lot of acrobatics, but there's a process in which you have to install it. You just can't work hard. You just can't do a lot of skills. Installation is an actual process. It's systematic. And when you see a breakdown of guys fighting, that's also systemic. That's why you see it consistently, because installation is a department that should be in your gym.
100%. That makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of talk, whether it's just people on social media or people on the fighters team. I can't understand why he didn't do this or wasn't able to do this, or this was totally gone. It was great in camp and it didn't show up on fight night. And so now hopefully that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It was never there to begin with. So is it fair to say when it comes to having these skills, having them installed is being able to call upon them when under pressure, when under duress?
Yeah.
Because if not, they're as good as not there.
If you think about when you get your car and you come from the dealership, you go to the garage, you go get it fixed, right? They put it down off of the hydraulics, and then they put the tires on. But if they don't screw the tires on, when you drive off, they come off. And that's the exact same thing that happens to a boxer. When he goes into the place, he has the skills, but when he starts to try to drive off with them, the caps come off, the nuts come off, and the tires come off. And so they become unhinged. And the exact same analogy, having those things screwed on tight once you got them isn't what the trainer who's working with them does. That's a different department. Therefore, guys like Emmanuel Stewart, Eddie Futch, Kenny Adams, they all had a multitude of champions because they understood a process that most coaches don't and most coaches won't. That's what we're sharing with you guys, that there actually is something different that they did. And they also did it a very different way. You can tell when you see someone who's from the old school because they just know how to properly groom an athlete. And I got to see it firsthand. And I said, this is exactly what these guys need. But the more you're around it, the more you understand. I actually took time and I wrote out a process because I thought my guys, they didn't know. Now this was before I actually had it written out. So I took this, and I didn't want to do this yet because it was a lot, because I actually started it with the cue cards, and then I wrote it out, everything. So this is installing the system, and it's page after page. And so instead of reacting, instead of getting trigger happy and just doing things like the young man over the weekend, he just started throwing some punches because his trainer asked for him to throw hard punches, and where's your power? But power is a part of that link. It's a part of that chain. And if that chain has not been installed, things are not in that nervous system the proper way. When you call upon it, you're going to lose it immediately.
And I mean, it all starts to make a whole lot of sense. And I'm thinking about our audience that is looking, and I'm thinking about the trainers. And, you know, a question that must be asked is, are you teaching skills, or are you stalling access to those skills when you're working in the gym?
Yeah, they're doing a great job. I love a lot of the channels. We joke and play about people, you know, being Instagram trainers or something like that. That's a joke. Because you're working hard, and I see you working hard, and I see you getting after that work, and I see you putting it into those guys in a way that they love it. You're doing the mitts, you're doing the footwork, you're doing the training. I see the sparring, I'm watching. Then I see guys out there practicing the shadow boxing. You got the skills. The difference is what has to happen next after looking good, being sharp, is the installation process. That's an entirely different methodology. And if that's not a familiar term, then that's where the gap is in your system. And if you got a gap, that means you got a blind spot. That's what shows up on that fight night. And that's what you saw on Saturday night. It's a bunch of people that have really, really good skills. They train really hard. They come and they are committed. And the only thing that's wrong is they have a blind spot. And that blind spot is the lack thereof installation.
Beautiful word. Very, very telling. Very telling. So as you think about, if you're someone that you're running a camp, what is something that the most important thing that you could press forward about what they must make sure, since the responsibility is on their shoulders?
It's the responsibility on your shoulders. Is to you can't measure it by what happens in camp, because like one of the coaches said, he performed really good during camp, in which he should, because you're training him good. The thing about it is, we're always 1 degree off from the thing that will make us a supernova.
Yeah.
And so now you have to go out there and acquire the thing that will help make you a supernova. Yeah. You can't train any harder, and you can't train any smarter. There's just a department missing out of your training system that brings it full circle.
I've heard you say it for years. You can be an inch away from where you want to be, but a million miles away from it at the same time.
Yeah, that's
if you don't know what's missing.
That's right, because you can be facing this way and the $1 trillion bag is 1 inch behind you, but you're facing that way and you're about to start walking that way. So therefore, you'll never get the thing that was already there. And therefore, it's going to be hard to try to figure it out, because you always have that instinct that I know I'm doing the right thing. I've watched this guy train. I know I'm training as good as he is, or better. But they find a way to win because they are simplified in their processes and systems. And we don't use the word system just as a cool word to use, or the word installation. It's a process that you have to implement into what you do. And it doesn't mean train more or start using more vernacular or trying to sound smart when it's just not about that. As a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. It's third grade grammar when you're talking about developing athletes that are at an elite level. Like, most athletes will perform better if they have a strength and conditioning expert on their team that focuses solely on that. They're more than likely going to outlast you condition-wise because they have someone broken off categorically to concentrate on breath work, oxygen levels, muscle systems, and understanding how to hardwire the nervous system measurements, VO2, all of those things that you gotta have in camp in order for your athlete to operate at an optimal level from a physical standpoint.
The way you explained that was super easy to grasp, and I can definitely see the white space that is out there for a lot of these teams. And you know, I know that you've dedicated a tremendous amount of your time and experience, and that's why these books and guides and resources exist, because no one was born knowing this stuff.
No.
And a lot of the fellows that started this, they're no longer here, and you put that on your back.
So the biggest thing is that I just wanted to be encouraging to the coaches. It's not you, right? And it's not your fighter, right? It's just a missing department. And that's why we're going to do a clinic tomorrow, 11 o'clock, and make sure that all of you guys get to take part. I think we'll leave a link down in the comment box. If you don't come, that's cool.
Yeah.
But this is week 4 now. And guys are learning. 5, is it 5?
Week 5.
It's week 5. And we're going deep. And these are the things that you learn about that are applicable. And so you can stop operating out of a training program and understand systems, processes, installation, neuromuscular system. All those things are the finite details that make what you do accessible on fight night.
There you go.
Period.
That's
Point
beautiful.
blank. So
yeah, the Tuesday clinics, the pressure performance clinics, are first class. If you've never
tell no one else.
Okay, don't tell anyone.
People, when they need something, they'll come and get it. So thank you. But if people, I know I searched and I went and got the knowledge, and I went and attacked it because I understood no one could say, "Hey man, you showing up at these high level camps. If you're not prepared, you're not going to be there long." So it's only for high-level coaches anyway. So for the most part, they'll find it.
Sounds good.
Who hit me first? The first message I got today? Shakur Stevenson, right? So when people are serious about what they do, they are around you, right? And it was just all about making sure that you guys are in a place where you know that that thing that's missing, that you have access to it, and you just do it. Because being great as a coach is about finding out the blind spots and making sure they don't exist anymore.
There you go.
You get what I'm saying?
Perfect.
So that's all I got. Be blessed. All of the guys in the School of Boxing, special shout out to you. And for the coaches who are coming up, got fights coming up, make sure you're prepared. Installation is real. You can't bypass it. You can look great at camp. But on fight night, it's going to show up. And make sure you got to have this, because this is your generation.
That's it.
And you want to get in the front of the lane, because when you get knocked back, man, it's a long line. You don't want to go to the back of it. You got to be intentional and act like, to those guys, that your job depends on it, because it does. Be blessed. Coach Bradley signing out.
Keep on.
For all of my good people.